I'm Norman Janes, and I'm here as part of the project of the James W. Cooper Fellows of the Connecticut Bar Association, trying to do some recording of the history of legal aid in Connecticut. And I'm here with Lorraine Dugas. We're in the New London office of Connecticut Legal Services, and we're talking to Lorraine this morning because she has the longest tenure of any legal aid employee in Connecticut. Lorraine, tell us when you started working for legal aid.
November 1968.
1968. And where were you? Where were you hired, and what were you hired for?
I was hired in to work in the Norwich office, but at that time it was called Legacy Inc., not Connecticut Legal Services. And I was hired through TVCCA,
which is the Community Action Program. Is that right?
Right. Yeah. Right. And they had like a special grant, the Nelson Amendment. I was paid through the Nelson Amendment, but I worked at Legacy as I was hired as a receptionist.
All right. Tell us a little bit about the office that you worked in Norwich in 1968.
It was kind of in a rundown section of town, storefront type office. We had bats and rats. We would go to get supplies in the morning, and you have to go down in the basement to get the supplies, and you may be greeted by a rat running around. And I don't mean a mouse, I mean a rat. They were river rats. Or I would sit there at my desk, and you could watch them gnawing at the ceiling.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, trying to come through.
How many people worked in the office then when you were hired?
I'm really not sure. There were probably 3, maybe 6. I'm not positive.
Okay, how many were there? Mostly attorneys or attorneys and support staff?
There were Pat Paquette, but she wore many hats, so there was Pat. Then there was probably 2 other secretaries and myself, and maybe 3 attorneys.
Okay.
But I'm not positive.
Yeah, okay.
I really don't remember.
And Legacy had 2 offices, the one in Norwich where you started and one in New London, correct?
Right.
Okay. And am I correct that it was started by the New London County Bar Association?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Do you remember where the funding came from?
No, I don't.
Right.
No.
And how long had it been in existence before you came in '68? Do you remember? Do you know?
I think it might have been just a matter of months. I don't think it was a full year.
Right. So it was pretty close to the beginning.
Right,
yes.
right. I don't think it was a full year.
All right. Okay. So that was 1968, and you were hired as a receptionist. What other kinds of positions or titles have you held in the succeeding 40-some years with Connecticut, with legal aid?
Well, in that short time, right, when I was hired, you kind of took whatever position the grant writer needed to put that, they needed to put someone in a position when they're writing the grant. So I switched over quickly from receptionist to secretary, from secretary to legal secretary. And then eventually I was talked into taking the position as a paralegal. I didn't really want to do that. I was happy doing the receptionist work. That's what I was hired for, and I was just kind of happy doing that. And anyway, Pat kept saying, "Oh, you can do it, you can do it." So she talked me into doing the paralegal work.
Do you remember when
I've gotten all the on-the-job training.
Yeah. Do you remember when that would have been?
No, we were still in Norwich at that time. It was before we moved to New London. I think it was before it was probably when we moved to Main Street.
In Norwich?
Yeah. We were on North Main Street originally when I started, and then we moved over to Main Street to a better place.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Better building. It used to freeze, and the landlord used to come in, and he'd have a lock on the thermostat, and we'd be in there freezing. And he would tell us, you couldn't type, your fingers were so cold. But he'd say, "We'll put gloves on." It was bad. definitely bad.
So, tell me about when, again, going back to 68, 69, when you were first there and a receptionist, what kind of clients and what was the nature of the problems that they were bringing in?
Almost everything. We did almost everything except criminal. We didn't do criminal.
Yeah.
But people would come in with accidents. Somebody's tree would be hanging over on the other person's property. Divorces, housing.
And were there a lot of sort of welfare-related kinds of problems in those days?
Yes.
Yes, they
Yeah.
did. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And was there any outreach or any effort to help clients understand what they might have as legal problems in those days?
I don't really remember because I was new in the workforce
sure.
and I was just concentrating on what I had to do. I honestly don't remember. I think that Pat Paquette did go out and do some outreach, but I'm really not positive.
What was her title? Do you remember?
She had lots of titles. She was bookkeeper. She was the assistant to the director.
Could be. I mean,
Yeah.
she was an administrative. She was not an attorney. She was an administrative
Right,
person.
right.
Okay. So, and now let's just sort of trace the history because you started off with Legacy in New London, in Norwich. When did you eventually come to work in New London?
Yeah, after we merged.
After the merger with
Right.
Connecticut Legal Services, which was 1977.
Right, and the office in Norwich
Right,
closed.
closed, right.
Once we moved from North Main Street to Main Street, and then when the office there closed, that's when I came to New London.
But that was not in this nice building we're in now, was it?
Nope. No.
Tell me
we
what
were in
that was.
another fun place.
I was going to
Yeah.
say, tell me some stories about that because I know some of those as well.
Yeah. Well, that one, I forgot whose office it was, but someone was sitting in their office and the ceiling fell. And there were also mice running around there. And what else? The clients would walk in the front door, the way it was set up. The clients would walk in the front door and you'd find a client, like my office was upstairs, you'd find a client standing in front of your doorway upstairs. They just kind of would take over, wander over around the whole building, before they found where they were supposed to go.
Right. Okay. That building had been a house at some point, as I recall.
Right.
So it was divided up into smaller rooms and not really set up as an office.
Right.
Right. As I recall, that landlord was an interesting person too.
I don't know too much about him, but right.
Right. All right. So when you became a paralegal, what was the nature of the work that you were doing with clients? Again, let's go back to the beginning of that.
Family.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was your role then? As you started your role as a paralegal, what did you do with the clients and with the attorneys?
Well, Attorney Welch, I started with Attorney Welch, and he did the interviewing because he liked to meet the client. He liked to do that. And then he would give me the file, and I would prepare all the documents.
To file for a divorce.
Right,
Yeah.
right, for the divorce,
Okay.
right.
Okay. And did you have a lot of client contact in those days, or was it most?
No, not really. No, after Attorney Welch left, that's when I was able to interview the clients, and probably at that point I did almost everything except go to court.
Uh-huh. Okay.
I started the divorce papers, made sure they were served, got the return, filed the motions when the motions had to be filed, and
We all know
sometimes
that.
I went to court with the attorney.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And we all know that in divorces that the clients are sometimes quite upset and distressed and worried, and life is not easy for them when they're going through the divorce. Was it your role to sort of deal with the clients and talk to the clients and tell them what was happening or not happening?
Yes.
And let them complain and cry and carry on?
Yes,
Yes.
yeah. In fact, someone even got my phone number. I don't know how they got my home number, but a couple of times I got calls from this guy in New York. His wife was here in Connecticut.
The wife was our client?
Yes.
Right, okay.
And he managed somehow to get my phone number and called me, and I could not get him off the phone, cried. He was just, probably for an hour crying and begging me to try to do something to stop the divorce.
Oh, my goodness. Oh.
Yeah.
Late at night or?
About 8
Yeah,
o'clock,
okay,
probably,
okay,
reasonable
yeah,
time, but,
okay.
not what I
No.
needed.
No.
No.
So what was, and have you are you still doing family law paralegal work?
No, now I do Social Security Disability.
And what is your role in those cases?
I send out requests for medical records. I follow up with different agencies and with the different providers, to get all the records together for the attorney.
And do you do client interviews in that as well?
No.
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 More of the document preparation.
Yeah.
and
Again, I
management.
think John and the people that I work directly with now, I think prefer to do that themselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the role of a paralegal really is to you have to adapt yourself to the personality and predilections of the attorneys that you're working for.
Right.
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 Okay. Okay. And you mentioned on-the-job training. Have you had any formal training in any of these fields that you worked in?
Yes.
Yes.
You can ask me why I forgot. I don't
No, no.
know.
I
Yeah,
yes.
I've had some.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
I did something at Mitchell College. I don't really remember what it was, but then I went away for some training. Where did we go? Went to Boston for something for a week. You might have been the director then.
Okay. And so you did the family and you're doing the Social Security Disability now. Anything else? Any other substantive area you worked in?
I did. Started out as a receptionist, then did the legal secretary stuff, then the paralegal. Worked in the family unit. I worked in the mental retardation unit.
Uh-huh.
Do you remember that one?
I do.
Okay. I
Right.
didn't have a clue what I was doing.
Tell-
Didn't have a clue what it was all about. Worked in the elderly unit, and I think from the elderly I went to Social Security. No, I did family again. That's right. I did get back into family again with John Kelly, and then I went to disability.
Tell us about that mental retardation unit. What was that?
I honestly don't know. I don't know what it was supposed to be all about. I really don't.
It was the clients, were most of them at Norwich Hospital, State Hospital at the time, or were there clients in the community who were had issues regarding their mental health?
Well, there were clients because they were closing the Norwich Hospital at that time, right? I think I'm pretty sure that's when they were closing.
Yes.
And so, a lot of the people were just being discharged out into the community.
Right. And what, again, were you involved in client interviews or client contact or?
Not really.
No.
No.
And the elderly work, was that different than anything? What was that consist of?
That I did a lot of home visits. I did have the client contact.
Right.
I'd go to the clients' homes to do intakes. I would go to the senior centers. I would do outreach. Have to give speeches, that was not my thing either.
But you did it.
I did it.
You're good for
I did
you.
it. Yeah.
Right. So
Did
of
what
all
I
of
had to
those
do.
things that you've done, which have you enjoyed the most?
I do enjoy what I'm doing now, but and I like to continue doing what I'm doing now because family has changed so much, and I would never be able to really have the hands-on that I had before with family. But I did enjoy family. family and the disability unit have been my two favorite.
And yet your role is very well. Make sure I understand, because I'm trying to figure out why those two, but wasn't your role very different in the family unit than your role doing disability
Well,
work?
see,
No?
it was for part of the time when I did family the second time around. In between, it must have been in between elderly and I forget if it was in between elderly and the mental retardation unit that I was in. But the second time around, I had more contact. You know, I could I could interview the clients.
Right.
And after Charlie Welch left, you know, there was a short time where I did that, and that's when I would go to court because half the time the attorneys hadn't even met the clients. I had to go to court with them to
Because you had
Like the
one
client
that
out.
who'd done the intake and the interviews
did all
and
the
all.
preparation.
Okay.
Right,
Okay.
right.
So am I guessing that you really enjoy the client contact and work
Mhm.
with clients?
Yes,
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah. So tell me, can you think of who one of your more interesting clients were? And without revealing any confidences, tell us why you found them interesting?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago, Norm.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know.
Uh,
I do know that I am a softie, though, and, you know, I almost brought clients home because I felt bad for them. Like there was this mother who said that her and her child or children, I forget what it was now, were sleeping on the floor, you know, didn't have mattresses or anything, and I was ready to bring them home. But I didn't.
But there is some benefit in being able to get to know these people and be a part of their lives,
Mhm.
don't you think?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I would say that it's a privilege that we have working in legal aid, is that we do have that opportunity to be involved in our clients' lives.
Mhm.
They're willing to let us be involved.
Right.
I think is something that many people in the legal field probably don't have that we have. Well, now on another theme, you've since you've been here so long, there have been lots of changes in the structure and the funding and organizational kinds of things. How has that affected you in your work as you know as a staff person here? Is that were some of those times really difficult, or did you feel isolated from them? Tell me a little bit about all those changes, how they might have affected you.
I don't know.
You-
I don't really have an opinion, I guess. I don't.
Well, did it make a difference to you in the work that you were doing on a daily basis as some of these changes, as you know, going from Legacy to Connecticut Legal Services, and then the several times when we obviously had funding problems and we had to let people go and make changes in how we structured it? Did that affect
Well-
your work?
Well, it did, because at that point when we had financial problems, that's when I had to switch over. I had to make a decision, I guess, you know, as far as what did I want. I mean, did I want to stay and do secretary work, or what? I don't even remember
Yeah,
exactly
okay,
what
the
it was.
choices were, yeah.
Yeah, I had to make a choice,
okay.
and I didn't. That's when I started doing Social Security disability. You know, I had to bump, and that's, yeah. So I don't. I don't really know.
Right.
Yeah.
But would I be mistaken if I said that it really wasn't easy for you or the others who were trying
Oh,
to do
correct.
it? Yeah, right.
Yeah, it wasn't easy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, right.
Oh my God, I can remember Ann Harkins.
Ann Harkins, okay, I'm sorry, yeah, all right, okay.
In
yeah.
Norwich before the whole merger took place. Every morning, I mean, Ann was a sweetheart, but every morning when I got to the foot of the stairs, you could hear her yelling, screaming something about the budget before I even walked in the door, before I even got up the stairs.
Just for the people who may be viewing this or reading this, Ann Harkins was a bookkeeper.
Right.
and worked for Legacy, and then when the Connecticut Legal Services merger took place, she worked in the administrative office of Connecticut Legal Services, and she was there for many, many years as well.
Right.
But she had come over from Austria after World War II.
Yes.
Had a fairly heavy German accent and a fairly loud voice.
Yes.
And was always thought that she was. I mean, she pretended like she was fighting with everybody.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But in fact, she had a real soft spot. She
Yes,
was
she
really
did.
a softie.
And if she liked you,
Yeah,
she liked you. You were all set.
You
And
were-
if she didn't like you, watch out.
that's right. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you had to stay on her good side.
And not to digress too much, she had a remarkable memory, because I worked with her, of course, in the administrative office of Connecticut, in Middletown when she worked
Right.
for us there, doing the bookkeeping, and she had a remarkable memory of all of our vendors and what we paid them and when we paid them. Auditors would come in to do their normal checks, and she'd be able to answer their questions about why this was paid, and the documents were all there. She stapled everything together, all of the papers together, but she could tell you stories about each one of the checks that she wrote. I mean, she was
Yeah,
an incredible
she did.
memory.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who else would be memorable characters that you got a chance to work with? And I don't mean to be characters, but who were some of the people that you've worked with over the years that sort of stick in your mind, made a real impression on you, either current or past?
Well, I mean, all of them, really. I mean, we had volunteers. We had like Lisa Bing was a great volunteer in the family unit. John Kelly, I think John Kelly was a great attorney. John Spilka, I just love John to death. John is.
And he
just
still works for
great.
Connecticut. He's the head
Yeah.
of the disability unit now, right? Yes, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
John is. He's good attorney, and Mary. I mean, all of them really.
Anybody?
There was really all the people that I have worked with all these years. There was only one person that I can't even say I didn't get along with, but one person that kind of gave me a hard time.
And we won't mention that person's
And I
name.
think-
but
yeah, you probably know.
I can make a guess.
Yeah.
I can make a guess.
Yeah.
Uh,
But other than that, I mean, everyone that I've worked with, they've always all great people, Secretaries, no matter who it is,
yeah,
attorneys,
right.
whatever.
Right. Yeah. I think that's certainly my experience as well. And what about the clients? The nature of the people that we're seeing and trying to help with in those 40 some years, any difference in the nature of the clients?
I don't really know.
Yeah.
Because I don't have that much client contact now, and I haven't in, really several years.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, for me to say, I don't really
Yeah.
know.
Oh,
I don't know.
You don't know whether there are clients still coming in whose children are sleeping on the floor.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Probably worse with, it's my opinion. I think it's probably worse with all the drugs and, stuff like that.
Yeah. And that you definitely sense that in the 1968 and early 70s, drugs and drug abuse, drug addiction was not nearly the problem it is today. Is that?
I personally don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
alcohol maybe,
Yeah.
but I don't. Maybe people were using drugs like they do today, but I guess I just never noticed it.
Right. Well, but
I
it
wasn't
affects.
aware of it.
I mean, it certainly. I assume that some of the disability clients are at least partially disabled because of their drug use, and you. I'm guessing then that you didn't see that much of it when you were doing family cases in the early 60s,
No.
early 70s then.
No.
Yeah.
I don't recall that. Alcohol seemed to be a problem.
Sure.
But I don't recall the clients talking about their husbands or them being drug addicts.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that's probably an appropriate perception about the nature of the clients and what we can do for them, and what they're able to do for themselves. Well, what to not to be too philosophical here, but I have two questions. One is, where do you think that legal aid is going to be, 10 years from now? I mean, do you have any thoughts about what it might look like and what the work might be 10 years from now?
No.
No? Okay, all right,
No.
right.
No opinion. No.
Actually, I was going to ask about technology, how technology has changed
Oh,
the
that
work
has
we do.
definitely changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the better, do you think? Or-
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Yeah.
When I started, I typed on the manual typewriter with carbon copies.
Yes.
And if you made an error, you had to correct each
Each
carbon
card
copy.
copy, yeah. Yeah.
And
Some people viewing this may not know what carbon paper is,
Yeah.
Lorraine.
right.
We're a little bit antiquated in that regard, but anyway.
And the copying machine, you used to have to put this big roll of paper in, and do you remember that? I don't know if you remember that. Big roll of paper, and then occasionally it would stick, and you have this thing coming out. Just a big roll of paper coming out, and yeah, big difference.
And you probably didn't have a copying machine in 1968, did you?
We had, yeah.
Yeah, really?
It was. I don't know if they called it a would they've called it Xerox machine, maybe?
Well, probably not.
Or is that?
I recall a copier that you had to put whatever you were going to copy into a plastic sleeve, and there also that it came out. There was some kind of a filmy cover sheet. Do you remember that you had to tear off and just throw away?
No.
It may have been a different kind of
Yeah.
technology, but it was very antiquated.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
recall that there was one law student, I started in Willimantic about the same time that you were starting in Norwich. And we had one law student who had been given instructions about how to use the copier. And again, you had to put stuff into this plastic sleeve.
Yeah, I don't remember.
And he was making a copy of somebody's driver's license for some reason, and he didn't do that. And the machine ate the driver's license.
Oh, shit.
So technology has come a long way.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Was it easy to transition from one kind of technology to another?
No.
No?
Not
No?
for me.
Okay.
Not for me. And
Okay.
it still
It
isn't.
still isn't, right. Okay.
No. 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 Yeah. It takes me a while.
What would, what would you like to be remembered for in terms of your work in legal aid all these years? What do you think is the most important kind of work that you've done?
Probably the family and disability.
And why is that? Why is it most important?
Because, like right now, the disability clients, many of them are homeless. They don't have any income. Some of them live in the woods, and to be able to get them that money, at least they can get themselves a little apartment and, have shelter and food.
So you think you're making a difference in the lives of these people?
I hope so. I think so. I hope so.
Lorraine, I'm sure you are. And on their behalf, thank you for doing that for so many years. It's really, really wonderful. I'd wonder if you have anything else you'd like to add for this little video that
No.
we haven't talked about?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Thank you very much. I really do
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it. You've been wonderful.
You're welcome.